1914, humanity was supposedly at the peak of civilization. We had electric lights, telephones, and cars were starting to look less like death traps on wheels. People were feeling pretty good about themselves, thinking, wow, we've really got this whole progress thing figured out. Surely we're too sophisticated for a massive, idiotic war. Well, about that, turns out, underneath all that fancy progress, Europe was a powder keg of simmering drama just waiting for a match. It was less a height of civilization and more like a high school cafeteria full of insecure bullies with massive armies. France was still salty about losing Alsace-Lorraine to Germany in the Franco-Prussian War a few decades earlier. They wanted it back, badly. It was like their ex ran off with their favorite hoodie, and they spent 40 years plotting how to get it back, maybe along with the kidney. Meanwhile, Germany, the new kid on the block with a massive industrial complex and a serious inferiority complex, decided it needed a navy. Not just any navy, but a navy big enough to challenge Great Britain, the undisputed heavyweight champion of the high seas. Britain naturally saw this as Germany showing up to their party, trying to hit on their girlfriend and drinking all their beer. Their response was basically, oh, you're building a dreadnought. That's cute. We'll build to this. Naval arms race was the 20th century equivalent of two guys revving their unnecessarily loud car engines at each other at a stoplight. Add to this the internal struggles of creaky old empires like Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, who were desperately trying to keep their diverse and increasingly nationalist populations from breaking up with them. And you have a continent-wide mess, so all this tension needed was a spark. And that spark came on June 28, 1914. In the not-so-glamorous city of Sarajevo, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, decided to pay a visit. The security for this visit was, to put it mildly, a joke. It was organized with all the competence of a toddler trying to assemble IKEA furniture. A group of Serbian nationalist assassins, about as subtle as a foghorn in a library, were waiting. The first attempt was a spectacular failure. A bomb was thrown, but it bounced off the Archduke's car and blew up the one behind it. Any sane person would have said, okay, that's enough sightseeing for one day, let's get the hell out of here. But not Franz. After his official duties, in a move that would win him a Darwin Award if they existed back then, he decided to visit the people who were injured in the bombing at the hospital. His driver, who apparently didn't have Google Maps, took a wrong turn and, by sheer, dumb, cosmic coincidence, stopped the car right in front of another assassin, Gavrilo Princip, who was probably grabbing a sandwich and lamenting his failed mission. Princip couldn't believe his luck. He walked up and shot the Archduke and his wife Sophie at point-blank range. This assassination was the excuse Austria-Hungary had been dreaming of. They saw it as the perfect opportunity to finally crush Serbia, who they viewed as a troublesome little neighbor constantly stirring up their Slavic population. So, they drafted an ultimatum to Serbia. This wasn't a list of reasonable demands, it was a political hit job disguised as diplomacy. It was designed to be impossible to accept, basically asking Serbia to hand over the keys to their country and let Austrian police run wild. It was the international equivalent of I dare you to say what again. Serbia, knowing it was screwed, accepted almost all the outrageous demands, but it wasn't enough. Austria-Hungary, with a blank check of support from its big brother Germany, declared war on Serbia. This is where the whole thing went completely off the rails, thanks to a tangled web of alliances that acted like a series of tripwires. It was a system of I got your back that was about to drag everyone into a brawl. Russia, seeing itself as the protector of all Slavic peoples and also wanting to expand its influence, started mobilizing its army to back up Serbia. Germany saw Russia mobilizing and immediately freaked out. They told Russia to stop. Russia said no. So, Germany declared war on Russia. Because France was in an alliance with Russia, Germany knew France was about to jump in. So, in a brilliant act of preemptive paranoia, Germany declared war on France. It was a chain reaction of diplomatic stupidity. One country sneezed and the whole continent caught the plague. Germany's grand strategy for this inevitable cluster you-know-what was called the Schlieffen Plan. It was a plan born of both arrogance and desperation. Germany was stuck between two powerful enemies, France in the west and Russia in the east. The plan's logic was this. Russia was huge and would take forever to get its massive, clumsy army ready for a fight, like trying to wake up a sleepy bear in winter. So, Germany would ignore Russia for a bit, throw the vast majority of its army at France, knock them out in a swift lightning-fast campaign, and then pivot to deal with Russia. The key to this quick knockout was to avoid France's heavily fortified border by swinging through neutral Belgium like a giant right hook. It was a daring plan. It was also a catastrophic strategic blunder. Violating Belgian neutrality was the geopolitical equivalent of punching a nun. It was just not done. More importantly, there was a dusty old treaty from 1839 where Great Britain had guaranteed Belgium's neutrality. The Germans figured Britain wouldn't go to war over a scrap of paper, as as their chancellor dismissively called it, they were wrong. Dead wrong. Britain, not wanting Germany to control the entire European coast, had the perfect moral and legal justification to enter the war. So, when German troops crossed the Belgian border, Britain declared war on Germany. Suddenly, Germany's quick little war involved the British Empire, the largest empire the world had ever seen. The Schlieffen Plan's success depended entirely on speed, but the Belgians, despite being hopelessly outmatched, put up a surprisingly stubborn resistance, buying precious time for the Allies. As the Germans advanced, the early battles were a horrific preview of what was to come. This was a war fought with 20th century weapons and 19th century tactics. The French army marched into battle wearing bright red trousers and dark blue coats, making them perfect targets for German machine guns. Their officers still believed in the élan of the bayonet charge, gallantly leading their men in dense columns straight into a meat grinder. The result was predictable and appalling. Entire generations of young Frenchmen were mowed down in suicidal attacks. It was a brutal lesson in how much the world had changed. A single machine gun could now do the work of 100 riflemen, and massive artillery could obliterate entire landscapes from miles away. The age of cavalry charges and colorful uniforms was over, replaced by the grim mathematics of industrial-scale slaughter. Meanwhile, back on the Eastern Front, the sleepy Russian bear woke up a lot faster than the Germans had anticipated. Russia mobilized with surprising speed, forcing Germany to pull crucial divisions from the Western Front to go bail out their spectacularly incompetent ally, Austria-Hungary, who was getting its butt kicked by both Russia and tiny Serbia. This diversion of troops fatally weakened the German right hook aimed at Paris. Even so, the Germans pushed on, getting so close to Paris that their soldiers could supposedly see the Eiffel Tower. But at the critical moment, during the Battle of the Marne, a gap opened up in the exhausted German lines. The French, in a desperate but brilliant move, famously rushed reinforcements to the front in a fleet of Parisian taxis. The Allies counterattacked into the gap, and the German advance finally ground to a halt. A retreat was ordered. The dream of a quick victory was dead. What followed was the race to the sea. It wasn't a race for a prize. It was a desperate attempt by each side to outflank the other. Both armies tried to swing around the northern end of their opponent's line, but they were always met by the enemy doing the same thing. This deadly dance continued until they ran out of land, stretching all the way to the English Channel. The result was a continuous, unbroken line of defenses from the Swiss border to the North Sea. The war of movement was over. The Western Front had been born, and with it, the most hellish form of warfare humanity had yet devised. Trench warfare. Life in the trenches was a nightmare. Both sides dug in, creating complex networks of ditches protected by massive tangles of barbed wire. The strip of land between the opposing trenches was grimly named No Man's Land, a desolate, crater-pocked wasteland of mud, corpses, and shattered trees. The military doctrine of the day had no answer to this stalemate, except to throw more men at it. The standard tactic was a multi-day artillery bombardment, designed to shred the enemy's barbed wire and crush their defenses. In reality, it mostly just churned up the mud and alerted the enemy that an attack was coming. Then, the whistles would blow, and soldiers would climb over the top of their trenches, charging across no man's land with fixed bayonets. They would be met by a storm of machine gun fire that cut them down in waves. Gains were measured in yards, while casualties were measured in the tens of thousands. Living conditions were beyond horrific, with soldiers battling not just the enemy but also mud, rats, lice, disease, and the constant mind-shattering stress of shelling, a condition that would become known as shell shock. The grand clash of empires had devolved into a stagnant, industrialized war of attrition, a bloody stalemate that would consume millions of lives and scar the psyche of a generation. The Great War had begun, and the height of civilization had fallen into the abyss.